And welcome everyone to another lecture. Tonight's lecture is called Prepare Like a Pro. So we'll be going over some games by some of the very best players in the world, and I will try to give you guys an idea as to what goes into those games in terms of preparation. So the game I wanted to look at is the game between Anish Giri and Gukesh from this year's Tata Steel Chess. So the difficult thing is when you play against a player like Anish, there's a lot of things you have to be ready for with the black pieces. I played against Anish at the Dutch Championship over the summer, and you have to be ready for for E4, for D4, for C4, and also after those very first moves, there's a lot of things he can still do. So Anish opened the game up with D4, and Gukesh responded with the move Knight f6, C4, and E6. This is how most players respond to 1d4 with black. The idea is that in case white goes Knight c3, here black wants to play the Nimzo Indian with the move Bishop b4. All right, but also here, again, there's many things you have to be ready for there. There's Queen c2, there's e3, f3, a3, and the list goes on and on. In this game, Anish does something different. He plays the move Knight f3. And here black has some options. You can go into the Queen's Indian, for example, with the move b6. But the other main move is the move d5. And now it turns a bit more into a Queen's Gambit decline, especially after Anish's move Knight to c3. White can also play the move g3, and again, this is also a move you have to be ready for, the Catalan opening. There's many things black can do. You can go bishop b7, bishop b4, or take this pawn over here. But most of the top players, they know a lot of these variations. But Anish goes Knight c3. And here, what has become very popular recently is this move c5, the semi-tarrasch, and after c takes d5, c takes d4. I guess also here Anish had something prepared, but Gukesh played the move bishop to b4, the Ragozin defense. And here again, there's a lot of things white can do, like Queen a4 is a move, bishop g5, you can also take on d5 first, here bishop g5, or bishop f4. But in this game, Anish had prepared the move bishop to g5. Right, now what black can do here is they can take on c4, and this goes back into the Vienna game after the move e4. So this gets very sharp, so Anish also had to be ready for this. But Gukesh plays the main move, which is more consistent with the Ragozin. He goes h6. He's challenging this bishop on g5, and white has to make a decision. You can move your bishop back to h4, but now black is a little better prepared to take on c4 with the inclusion of h6 and bishop to h4. I think now after e4, perhaps there might already be something like g5, attacking the bishop, and now you take on e4, as there's no longer the pin on the knight. All right, so after h6, the main move by far and large is to trade on c6. Black recaptures, and here white played e3. Again, there are moves like Queen a4. And the thing is, Anish played e3, castles, and rook to c1. So plays rook c1, bringing his rook into the game. In case black takes, he can now always recapture with the rook. And as we see here, black has the bishop pair, but the bishop on c8 is a little bit passive. White's got some pressure on the d5 pawn, so white can still hope for a small edge here. But generally this line is not really known as that dangerous, but Anish proves differently in this game. So Gukesh takes on c4, Anish recaptures. Here he plays c5 to challenge white center, and Anish castles, and he takes on d4. Again, both players are still following the main line, and here there have been a lot of draws where white plays knight takes d4, black goes bishop d7 to prepare knight c6, white goes queen b3, and after knight c6 there's a pretty well-known repetition. After it takes on c6, black can take here, and after bishop takes c6, some games have ended in a draw like this. All right, but again, Anish had different intentions in this game. So he played the move knight e4, attacking the queen on f6, the queen moved back to e7, still the main move, and Anish played a3, he's attacking this bishop. But again, like if you want to go into a variation like this, you also perhaps have to look at moves like queen g6 and at a lot of deviations earlier. So queen e7 was played, now a3 by Anish attacking the bishop. The bishop moves back to a5, white takes here on d4, and black plays rook d8. And again, up until this point, all of this has been known yet, and black is supposed to be doing pretty well here. They have the two bishops. They also have the slightly better pawn structure because this d4 pawn is isolated. So you might be wondering, like, why would white even want to go for this position, right? Well, the one thing white has got going for them is that they have a lead in development. Like white's got 2 knights developed, a bishop as well, the rook is into the game, whereas black has 1 bishop active. This bishop is not active yet, and neither is the knight. And here Anish, I don't know if it was a novelty, but it was certainly not a move that had been played before at the top level. He played the move rook c2. You might be wondering, okay, why? What is so special about this move? And when Anish talked about this move in an interview, he said that when he looked at this position with the computer, it shows the move rook c2, and it evaluates this move as 0.02. So you might be wondering, okay, why does he want to go for this move? And here black still has a lot of options that are fine for them. They can actually go bishop d7 and knight d7. Those 2 moves are pretty fine for black. But the thing is, even though there are multiple moves that are fine now, black is gonna walk a tightrope later, and we'll soon enough see why. Black actually could have played the move knight d7, and here white, it does allow white to play the move d5. And here black has 2 moves. Black can go either knight f6 or take on d5. But again, like if you're playing against one of the best players in the world and they're blitzing out every move, it's not that easy to go for something like this. Like let's say you go knight f6, now I can go d6, attack the queen. And here already black only has 1 move, which is okay for them. Does anyone have any ideas? What should black play in this position to hang on? The queen's under attack. We see that taking here doesn't work, as white gets another queen. So the queen has to move. So where does everyone think the queen, what looks like the best square for the queen?
d7.
Well, d7 is possible, but I think here white gets to move knight e5 with a tempo. So the queen actually should go to f8, but then you allow this, and the king is a little bit exposed. And again, if you're playing against someone who's playing super quickly, you feel a little bit nervous going into stuff like this, and white can play a move like queen e4, attacking this. And then here I think now you have to play queen g7 to hold the balance. So it just goes to show how difficult it is, because what some people don't understand, who, well, especially people who do not play chess at all, but even those who do play chess, at the top level, they sometimes prepare for weeks or days for a single game. Like Tata Steel's a tournament that's happening every year, and Anish usually has a training camp where he looks with his trainers at different openings. He's looking for new ideas and novelties that he can try against his opponents. And what you have to do is, at every move you're going to have to analyze a lot of moves. So let's say here, after move rook c2, he has to look at bishop d7, he has to look at knight d7, moves like bishop d6. Maybe also moves like a6 have to be looked at. He said that the file goes on and on and on. Like at every move he might be checking 10 moves so that he knows what to do. Like let's say knight c6 is also a very reasonable move. What should he do there, right? But Gukesh played a move which is pretty typical for this variation, and one that looks pretty solid. He played the move bishop to d7. All right, so with the move bishop d7, he wants to go bishop c6, put some pressure on this knight on e4, and then later this knight can still develop here. Looks pretty harmonious for black, right? But how does white proceed here? What was the point behind this move rook c2? How does Anish want to place his pieces? How do we continue to improve our position here?
I guess like eventually do like pawn b4 and then like double the queen and the rook. So like block the bishop and then double the queen and the rook.
All right, so you want to double them on the c file, or where do you want to double the queen and rook?
I guess on the d file.
Right, we can also, well, we can double them on the d file, but let's say going here. But like rook d2, we don't need to play rook c2 for that, right? I mean, then we could have also played, let's say, queen e3 here, followed by rook here.
That's true, yeah.
Right, so what was the idea behind the move rook c2? Have to look for a good setup for our pieces. Because again, right now white's setup looks quite innocuous, but we'll see the potential behind the white's position very soon. So how do we place our pieces here? Where's this rook headed? Now we've played rook c2. Exactly. Yep, the idea is rook to e2. Excellent, very good. We put the rook in e2. To eye this queen on e7. And now the idea is of d5. And by the way, one variation that I also wanted to show, like knight d7, by the way, was fine. Wait, sorry. Right after rook c2, knight d7 was a fine move. Then after d5, so knight f6 was fine, but it feels a little bit risky to let white take here and open up the king side. Black can also take here. But then after queen takes d5, you have to spot knight b6, attacking the queen. White can take here, black can take here, and there's bishop b3. And here, it may look like white still has a slight edge, because this bishop is active on this diagonal. There's bishop e6. White goes rook e1, attacking the queen. And here, black has only one move that fully maintains equality, which is the move rook d1. With the idea that in case you take, now black takes here and wins back the exchange. So it's not that easy to go for this variation, or you have to see all of this when you play knight d7, and you have to see that you have that move rook d1 at the end. So again, that's the pressure that these top players are trying to put on their opponents. But anyway, let's continue with the game. So bishop d7 was played, rook e2, and black played bishop c6. Black's putting pressure on this knight on e4, and now they want to develop with knight at d7. So how does white continue here? How does white continue to place their pieces? We've got the rook on a good square. So how do we continue from here? Does anyone have any ideas? So we've got this rook on a good square, right? It's on the e file, it's eyeing this queen potentially over here. So some people in the chat have found some good plans. So what we can play here is the move queen to c2. Play the move queen c2, and specifically to also get out of this d file, right? Because in some positions we might want to go for that d5 push again. But like let's say we play something like b4, bishop b6, and rook f1, right? I think here black can just play something like knight d7. And in case of d5, black can play knight f6 and take advantage of this pin along the d file. So we want to get out of the pin on the d file, but also with this move we kind of eye the black king a little bit. Like we have these knights over here. It's kind of looking in this direction, and we'll see that that will play a role later. Now here black would love to just develop with the move knight d7, and in case black also can go knight f6. Feels like black is doing pretty fine, because after knight f6, black brings the knight over, is putting pressure here. Again, black has the bishop pair, but knight d7 is not a good move. It runs into a pretty strong response from white. So does anyone have any idea what white can do here? Hmm. Any ideas? How can I use their active piece army here?
Would it be time to like push the pawn?
Exactly. Here, white goes d5. Attacks the bishop. And in case black takes the pawn, what does white do here?
Is it like take back and then knight c3?
Well, I mean, if we take and go knight c3, the best we can hope for is that we get the piece back, right? And black can just move the bishop out of the way. Again, keep in mind what I was saying earlier, right? That with the move queen c2, we're indirectly eyeing the king on g8. So how do we take advantage of that here? Don't be too tunneled in on what's happening in the center. It's actually all about the king over here. How can you get that? How can you get to that king? Also keep in mind that you have this discovery on the e-file. So we're
G5.
exactly. So you go knight g5. You attack the queen, and now this is a threat, and black is lost. They're gonna have to give up their queen somehow with something like takes, but black just doesn't get enough. Here they have two minor pieces, which is not enough for the queen. And as Anish said in one of his interviews, that like if you're playing with black and you see that the natural move like knight d7 does not work because of d5, it's already a little bit unpleasant. Like you see how you can lose the game. That's already a small psychological blow. Now what black should do here is a little bit unnatural. Black should play the move rook c8, move the rook again, and line it up with the queen. And after queen d3, here black can actually take an e4, and after rook takes, go knight d7. Because now d5 runs into knight c5. So that is how black should have played, but Gukesh plays the move bishop to b6. All right, so he's putting some pressure on the pawn over here. All right, so how do we continue here? So we see that most of our pieces are active, right? I mean, our rook is active. This rook over here, both knights are active, our bishop as well, our queen. But how can we further improve the position here? Indeed, white played the move rook fe1. Exactly, he brought this rook into the game as well. All right, and here Gukesh already made the losing mistake of the game. He played the move king h8, which looks pretty, it doesn't look terrible, and we'll soon see why he played that move. Let's say black goes for a move like bishop takes d4. Here white has a very strong combination. Does anyone in the chat or in the audience have any idea what black can do here, or what white can do here? And this combination here is the main theme of the game. We'll see this occur a lot of times. Right, so this one is not easy. What white can go for here is the move knight eg5 anyway. Threatening mate. And in case black takes, then there's the move rook takes c6. And after takes, you take. The queen's under attack. This diagonal is getting ripped open. And there's no good way for black here to survive the attack. White's doing very well here. For example, if you take, and after king f8. For the moment, black has a lot of pieces because they have 2 rooks and a bishop, but white can take here, and after takes there's queen c5, and you pick up the rook. So that is really the, we'll see this theme occur a lot over here. All right, and in case, I think after queen f7, then there's knight takes g5. You take the queen, there's this threat, and also here, I believe black doesn't survive the attack. All right, so bishop takes d4 is now possible. And perhaps maybe that's something Gukesh underestimated. Maybe he thought after bishop b6, Anish would have to go here. So rook f1 was played for white. And now here, so here's the thing, like in this game, we've been going over questions like, okay, how does white win here? And those are all the fun questions. But now imagine you're playing with the black pieces, you're playing against Anish. He's super well prepared, he's blitzing out every move. Here, black only has one move to stay in the game. Black only has one move. All the other moves are actually quite bad. What should black play here to hang on? Does anyone have any ideas? And I'll give you guys a hint. We'll see that this sacrifice with knight g5 takes and rook takes e6 happens a lot. So black has one move to make sure that that sacrifice does not happen. So what should black do here? Right, bishop takes knight as a move, but I think here white takes with the, I think with the rook, and this position is also not very good for black because d5 now is a big threat. Also, this is a threat. Yeah. So. Any other ideas? So, okay, bishop takes e4. It stops this move, but black has a move to make sure that white does not have this combination with knight g5 and rook takes e6. So the casual player, in case black goes knight d7, then there's this move d5, sacrificing the pawn, and in case you take, there's knight eg5, taking the queen and threatening checkmate. So that's a little bit unpleasant for black. There's no easy way to get the knight in. Bishop d7 is kind of sad. Bishop d7 has been suggested. It strengthens the e6 point, but it does so in a very passive way. So actually someone in the chat has found a move. There's only one way for black to keep an acceptable position here, which is with the move bishop to d5, blocking the diagonal this way. That being said, though, this position also isn't a whole lot of fun. White can take on d5. Again, you cannot take with the pawn as there's knight eg5, and white wins. So you have to take with the rook. And here white can get a pretty pleasant advantage after knight c3, rook d6. What does white do here? How does white get the advantage? Because again, if black gets the time to get their pieces into the game, they're doing pretty all right because they have the slightly better pawn structure. But here white has a way to actually get the better pawn structure. So the move here for white is the move d5. Taking the pawn e6, black can bring their knight into the game, but after takes, after some trades, we see that white is a bit better because now black has this isolated pawn over here. White no longer has any weaknesses. But, you know, white's better, but it's not the end of the world, right? But Gukesh played the move king to h8. He was hoping that with this move he would step out of the danger a little bit, but that's not quite the case. Here, Anish came up with a really good move, with quite a hammer blow. What did white play in this position? And I believe Anish said later that this move might have still been in his file, but the file was just so big that he didn't remember, but he found the move over the board. H4 is a move, but there's something, again, like we're looking for a hammer blow here. H4 might improve the position, but not too dramatically or anything. And again, keep in mind that if you give black the time to consolidate, black isn't doing too bad. But again, white's got a crushing move here. So the move that white plays, and it has been found by some people in the chat, is the move knight eg5 anyway. Black takes, and what does white do now? What is the idea behind giving up the knight? And black, by the way, has to take because white is turning mate. So black takes, and now. So any ideas? Some people have found that in the chat. So what white does here is indeed the move rook takes e6, sacking the rook. Black has to take, and the idea really is to push the queen away so that white can take this pawn over here. If white takes here, white's threatening mate again. Okay, so black takes, white recaptures, so the queen is under attack. Now, let's say the queen moves, right? Let's say the queen moves here. What do we do now? Exactly, yep, we just take this pawn over here, white's threatening mate, and there's no good way for black to defend. Like, there's queen g8, but I think here there's probably multiple ways to win. I mean, I assume something like, let's say queen f5, and I don't think there's a good way to stop mate over here. So black's down, black's up a lot of material, but they're just getting checkmated. So black decided to give up their queen by taking on e6. And by the way, another pretty variation. So let's say black goes queen f7. We can win the queen, but this is even better. Take here. We attack the queen and threaten mate. Let's say black goes queen h5 here. What does white play in this position? Here white's got a pretty move. Okay, so one person has found it, but others are still struggling a little bit. Because bishop e2, I can just take the knight. The knight's a very important attacker. case of rook e8, black can probably just take. But in this position right here, white has the move rook h6 check. And that is that in case black takes the pawn, now there's mate over here. And in case you take with the queen, now there's check. You lose your queen with a check. In case the king goes here, now there's check. And it's gonna be mate. And well, if you go king back, then white can check over here. At the very least, white can pick up the rook with check, and the attack doesn't stop anytime soon. Actually, knight, I mean, white's winning here one way or another. All right, so there's no good way for black to hang on to the queen. So black just gave up the queen for the rook. White recaptured, and now black took on f3. Now white can recapture, and white's probably still winning. But I think the move that Anish played is even better. Does anyone have? Because again, we can still go after the black king on h8, which is almost checkmated, as this bishop is blocking, is taking away this square. So a check along the h file will be deadly. So how can we continue here with white? Well, which one creates only one of those two moves creates a very direct threat. Let me ask you, what threat does queen f5 create? If white gets another move here, like let's say black does this, what does white do here? Exactly, queen h3, and that's made. So then the question is, like, so queen f5 looks like a good move. Does queen g6 create a threat? Right, it doesn't, because the h5. Yeah. All right, no worries. Yeah, so this does not create a threat. So I don't like it as much. I mean, maybe here this move might still be winning. I don't know, but you also have to keep in mind that after moves like queen g6, black might be able to play a move like, let's say, something like, maybe black can even go here, you know, to keep covering the square. Although, yeah, and it's not as clear cut. I mean, one variation I was thinking about is, let's say, f3. Maybe black can take here with a check. The king moves over, maybe something like bishop d3. So they can block. Like, you never have to underestimate that often black still has a lot of defensive resources, you know, and then also dealing with checkmate threats over here. And here, this might actually already be gone. And keep in mind, black has a lot of material for the queen. So you have to be very, very careful. So Anish played the right move. He played queen f5, threatening checkmate over here. All right, now let's say black goes bishop h5 to cover the checkmate threat. What does white do here? All right, well, see, Jared, you mean, I guess you don't mean rook d6 here, right? Because queen h3 is still checkmate. But what does white do here after bishop to h5? Indeed, the move is rook takes g5. You attack the bishop. We're not threatening the rook as it's defended, but black simply has no good way to deal with the attacking bishop. And it's also going to be, it's just going to be mate. Because in case you move anywhere, then there's queen h4 checkmate, and in case of g6, there's always checkmate over here. So bishop h5 does not work. So therefore, Gukesh played the move bishop to e4. All right, now what should white play here? First question first, what is the idea behind bishop e4? Let's say white goes queen h3 here. Exactly, now they block with the bishop. Yep. And you have bishop f5, but here first of all the king can run, but also black can go g6 and rook d7. And again, it's very unclear, because again, black's got a lot of pieces for the queen. So what do we do here? Exactly, we just take the bishop. All right, so here, I'm trying to think. Gukesh, like he also could have gone rook e8 here. I'm trying to think what the problem was with, yeah, so let's say black goes rook to e8. What does white do here? Queen b7 is a pretty reasonable move. Now, in case black takes here, this actually loses for black, because we check over here, we take the rook, and we're going to win more material. Because let's say black goes knight a6, what does white do here?
Then e4.
Exactly. Then queen e4 check. Perfect. And we pick up the rook. But the drawback of queen takes b7 is that here black has the opportunity to play a move like knight a6. And you know, we can take the knight, but then they take our bishop. So after rook e8, we have to look for something else. We have to stay focused on the black king. So what does white do here? And also to answer some questions in the chat, like you can, let's say, go for something like queen f7 to threaten checkmate again. And I would still prefer white here. But keep in mind that black has a lot of pieces. Black has a rook, a knight and bishop. Now, generally, rooks are considered to be worth 5 points, and minor pieces are considered to be worth 3. So black has got 5, 8, 11 pieces, 11 points, and the queen is considered to be worth 9, right? So I would still prefer white because black's king is pretty weak, and white's got more pawns, but it's not going to be easy to win this one at all. But let's stay focused on the black king. White actually can add an attacker here. Which might seem surprising, right? Because we only have a queen and a bishop. There's a way here for white to add an extra piece into the attack.
Pawn d5.
Pawn d5 is a move. But here black can again play something like, I think here black maybe plays something like knight d7. And then now the knight joins the defense. So some people in the chat have found the right idea. I'll give you another hint. We see that very often white's back rank is weak, right? Some of the variations. So this move also deals with that.
H4.
So indeed, h4 is a very nice move. Of course, black cannot take. This is checkmate right away. And if black does something else, it's going to be quite useful that we take here, and this pawn will actually help in the attack. Like let's say black goes here, we take, again we threaten mate. Let's say black goes here, I mean taking is good, but there's even checkmate over here. And in case black takes, we now recapture, and we always have the idea to give a check over here, and then go g6. And even though it might not be checkmate right away, even though it still looks very scary for black, there are always ideas to just pick up this pawn over here, which will win us the game. Like let's say black goes here, I think just check, and g7 should win. So h4, very good. Black has to play g4 here, I believe. And I think here we just take. And then we get to this position, which is pretty good for white, but maybe holdable for black. Or objectively it's probably winning for white, but this gives black the best chances to hold. The black played the move rook takes d4, attacking the queen and threatening checkmate. Oh, threatening checkmate over here. All right, so what does white do now? Yeah, good question, sidearms. I mean, that was better, but yeah, white's still better there, but that was black's best chance to hold on. So what does white play here? Our queen is under attack and black threatens back rank checkmate. So ideally we want to deal with that, but we also want to make a move that creates threats for us again, right? Queen e2 is possible, because we threaten checkmate over here, but here black might be able to play g6. And we've got check, but there's king h7 and black's still in the game. So you've got the right idea, but I'm trying to find a move that's a little bit better. So similar idea, just a little bit more precise.
Queen f3.
Exactly, so we go queen f3, very good. So we go queen f3, we threaten checkmate over here, and now we also have ideas of checks here. So black played g4, all right, and now? Or where do we go with our queen? We go queen f8 check, king h7. All right, and how do we continue the attack?
Bishop f6.
You mean f5 or?
Oh, sorry, f5. Yeah.
Yeah, bishop f5. Exactly. Yeah, bishop f5 check. All right. Now here, maybe black should have played the move g6. Although there's also there's check. This feels very bad for black, but I don't see the win right away. In case of check, there's here. This should win somehow for white. Just trying to think exactly how. But this should win one way or another. Anyway, in this position, black played the move king to h6. The king moved up. So what does white play here after king h6? Oh, well, let's say we go queen h8, then black goes king here. About it, just to point out real quick, as some people have pointed out in the chat, indeed after in this variation white goes bishop c2, and there's no good way for black to deal with this threat. Just to show a couple variations, like let's say you go rook d6 to defend the pawn, and there's queen f8, you pick up the rook. In case of let's say knight d7, you can take here, check, and then you have this check over here. And yeah, so there's just no good way for black to defend. In case of here, I think now we play, let's say check, take, check, and pick up the rook, and white wins again. All right, so king h6 was played. Okay, so now keep in mind, again, black is still threatening checkmate over here. And the problem is in case we check, then the king steps up. And the king kind of escapes, right? So what good players often try to do is they try to find moves, they try to find multi-purpose moves. So you want to look for a move that, let me not point out, you want to find a move that stops rook d1, and you also want to find a move that makes sure that the king does not run out. Because the king, you want to checkmate the king over here, right? It's really stuck. Oh, bishop takes g4 has been suggested, but black just takes. h4 is a move. It's been suggested in the chat, but I guess black just takes. Bishop c2, great move. Bishop c2. You stop rook d1 checkmate, and here black actually resigned. Because white now is threatening, well, let's say black doesn't do anything, white's threatening check, takes, and it's gonna be mate. Like the king doesn't escape. Like here there's check and mate. There's nothing that black can do. Because in case of, let's say rook here, then I think you check over here. And again, the king is getting checkmated. Like here, there's g3. After g5, there's checkmate over here. So, yeah, pretty smooth win for Anish in this game, and quite a tough loss for Gukesh. As we saw in this game, he never really got into the game. Anish was in his preparation. He was still blitzing up until this point for sure, and he even had this stuff with knight g5 in his file. He only had to calculate this, and he won the game. So that's sometimes how it goes. So you might be thinking like, well, you know, he didn't have to find a single move on his own. But of course, there's a lot of work and preparation that goes into this. And yeah, that's what makes chess sometimes such a tough game. But I hope all of you guys enjoyed this lecture, both in person and on Twitch and YouTube. Again, thanks everyone for watching, and I hope to see all of you guys for the next lectures that are coming up.